watching this that you've got fairly impressive looking decoys. Do you think, I'm sure you told your wife they were necessary, but do you think they're actually necessary to have that good of decoys, Paul?
I think you need to have good decoys, and when I say good decoys, as realistic as you can get. Well looked after, either new paint jobs from new decoys, or if once they get a bit scruffy, a bit faded, getting that grey, bluey colour that decoys get when they've been out in the sun for a while, you've got to repaint them. So they've got to be realistic, not shiny, good dull paint jobs. As long as they look like ducks. No, they don't have to be expensive decoys, but they've got to be realistic decoys and put in a realistic situation. The decoys we have behind us, full body decoys, they look perfect in this situation, because this is the situation that you would see the ducks. They wouldn't battle away swimming in a fast current on the river. They'd soon land and swim straight to the bank and sit up there sunning themselves quite happily in a safe location. So that's what we're imitating here with our decoys. We've got half a dozen or so floaters out just for a bit of visibility. But yeah, you could easily do that with normal floating decoys propped up between a couple of stones on the bank.
Sure, yeah. Right, we're here on a wee farm pond in Southland. We snuck in the other day actually, we're in the area and came in to see if there was many birds here. Unfortunately it's not a pond you can look at without disturbing the birds, which is what we would have preferred to have done. But we snuck in and yeah, there was 30 or 40 odd birds here, so we thought it was well worth coming back. And obviously came back this morning. It's an existing pond that that's been shot historically, but hasn't shot well for the last few years. So the hunters have vacated the Mai, as you'll probably see. But we've had quite a good morning this morning, Paul.
Yeah, it's been great. Just goes to show that if we had crept in the other day and jump shot it, and we may have got a couple of ducks, and that would be it. But we've come back this morning and got out of bed early and put up with the frost, and we've shot about 20 ducks, and it's been great decoying. Ducks coming in, wings cut, and much more fun than jump shooting. And
no, it has been really good.
So I think it's an option a hunter should consider more, especially later in the season like it is now. Instead of jump shooting their pond, they should get out of bed early in the morning and get the Labrador out of the kennel and come out and have a shot. Yeah.
One of the things about it being late season, I guess, is that the birds are pair oriented. So rather than early in the season when obviously you'll still get pairs coming in, you'll have 3s and 4s and different numbers of ducks. But you don't need as many ducks on your pond now to represent a good hunting opportunity as first thing in the season.
No, that's dead right, Zane. 30 ducks, if they come in pairs, giving you 15 hunting opportunities. And yeah, instead of them all arriving in one mob and firing a couple of shots, it's worked out pretty good.
Yeah, and jump shooting a pond like this, whilst you might scratch a duck or two down, it's a relatively big pond, hard to approach. The ducks are always going to fly out from the opposite side you turn up on, sort of thing, and you'll be having going away shots if you like, and difficult proposition knocking ducks down in that circumstance. So yeah, it's been quite good with a lot of the ducks still arrived in fairly low light conditions this morning. Okay for shooting, just difficult to film unfortunately. Now the Mai, bit of a bugbear, no cover at all and really limited with how you can swing a gun in here and what you can see.
Yeah, it's a shocker really, but unfortunately it's a typical Southland pond Mai where people have looked for comfort and a few luxuries more so than shooting practicalities. And yeah, we've got a limited shooting arc here. We can only really shoot ducks that are hovering down in front of us in the pond, and we're missing some great opportunities of ducks flying straight through over top of us or flying a line behind us. And yeah, it just reduces the amount of opportunities you have so much.
Sure. One of the things we noticed here today, not ever having hunted here before, we didn't know where the ducks would come from. Quite a lot have come from out in front, and that wasn't too bad. You can see them come and get prepared, call at the right times, those sorts of things. But some of the best ducks have come off crops from out behind us, and we pretty much had no idea the ducks are coming because you've got no visibility behind you at all. Suddenly a good pair would present, and you know, you'd be chatting about anything other than duck hunting, and the pair would come through, and you might miss that opportunity or take a hurried shot or whatever. At other times we shot at a single out the front, and we actually had a pair that were due to come through as well. And so it's certainly not ideal and could be fairly easily remedied. So the main thing you'd fix with the Mai, Paul, is this overhang?
Yep, you could get rid of half that roof, just have enough roof there to shelter yourself if you were raining, if it was raining. Yeah, and probably cut down a bit of the vegetation around to give us a bit of visibility as well.
Yeah. certainly with the roof, you know, we've had ducks that have been flying along this line, and to pick up your gun, because the roof's pretty much directly above where the front of the mine is, there's no way you can swing your gun there. You can sort of try and poke at ducks up there. So you're really limited to shoot on a very shallow angle out in front of you. And even some of the ducks coming through very quickly get out behind you, and you just can't continue to shoot at them. And yeah, if Paul wasn't a good shot, we would have missed more opportunities probably, but certainly with my shooting.
One of the best features of this my zone is this bar we've got to keep our guns pointed in a safe direction.
Yeah.
No guns sitting up, propped up against the wall inside the mine that could fall over and potentially be dangerous.
Yeah, no, that is good. Yeah. Once again, Paul, the decoys, we haven't used a lot of decoys today.
No, bit of laziness there, only 5 or 6 decoys. But it's for a reason. It's late season with the ducks and peers. They are probably a bit less gregarious than they normally are. They're not.
Yeah.
We're not trying to attract ducks into a big mob of birds, and also we're not trying to get them to a place that they're not used to living. They're used to coming here. This has been in their habits every morning. They return here to load for the day. And there's a risk using too many decoys, and even with the calling, we've done minimal calling this morning, is if you're too much of it and it won't look natural. So we're better off minimising what we're doing to that could look a wee bit artificial to what they're used to seeing in the mornings.
Sure, yeah. And especially by this time of the day, I guess, but a lot of the ducks in this circumstance will be sitting up on the banks by now, and the ducks coming here wouldn't expect to see 50 sitting out in the middle of the pond.
No, that's dead right. They'll be tucked up in under the flax and poking around on the edge.
Right, in terms of calling today, Paul, I notice you haven't been doing a lot of the loud hail calls that you might have done in some other circumstances. What sort of things are you trying to do with your calling in this circumstance? Yeah,
in this situation here, Zane, we've got resident birds that are living here anyway, mainly peers, coming in regardless. So we actually want to try and make sure we minimise what we do to actually spook them. So that's why I'm doing minimal amount of calling. The only times we've done lots of loud hails and that is when we've had ducks wanting to land out in the paddocks or further away and make plenty of noise, good long loud hail calls. Once we get them in working close, if we see them coming well out, we might give them a short sharp greeting call. So they'll be flying in, spot them well out. Just to let them know we're here, let them know everyone's happy. And maybe if they do a bit of a tight circle, just a few clucks on the call. Happy ducks. And then if they do a circle and start heading away, we might try and get them to come back. And if they respond and turn, we're even a shorter. I try and use a 3-bar note. And hopefully we get some response from that.
In this next part of the video, we hunt ducks in a different scenario, where they're camped in an open riverbed. Right, so we did a bit of reconnaissance last night. We found these ducks in the afternoon, managed not to disturb them, and came in the dark, set up at first light with the decoy spread. What do you think we should talk about here, Paul?
Well, obviously we had a wee way to walk this morning in the dark, so we wanted to keep the amount of gear we bought to a minimum. We bought a couple of dozen decoys. So we bought 3 floating decoys to sit out on the water to look like a couple of 2 or 3 ducks have just landed, and the rest we've used full-bodied decoys along the bank. The ducks should have been reasonably set on the spot. Obviously we didn't see a lot of ducks this morning, but so we didn't want to have anything look out of place. Like if we had to use 30 or 40 floaters out sitting in the current, it wouldn't look natural, so we tried to get it as natural as we can for the conditions. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of things against us. The ducks are actually living on a dairy farm very close by, just feeding over the willows over there. So our first lot of shots disturbed the majority of the ducks that are living here. And after that, we really just picked up a couple of a few pair that had been living further away. And that's the situations you'll sometimes get.
Yeah, it's late in the season now, so the birds are starting to sort of behave in pairs more than they do